You think sending more texts is going to bring them closer. It is not. In fact, every extra message you send is quietly pushing them further away. And nobody tells you this. Nobody explains why the avoidant person in your life goes cold the moment things start feeling good. Nobody hands you the actual words that work, until now. Here is what most people do not understand about avoidant attachment. The rules that apply to every other person you have ever liked do not apply here. What works on someone secure, someone emotionally available, someone who actually wants closeness, those strategies will backfire completely with an avoidant. And if you have been trying to love an avoidant the way you would love anyone else, you have already felt this. You have felt them pull back. You have felt the confusion. You have sent a warm message and watched them go quiet. You have poured yourself into the connection and somehow ended up with less than you started with. That stops today. What I am going to give you are 4 specific types of texts, not generic advice, not fluffy suggestions, actual approaches with the psychology behind why they work on an avoidant brain specifically. Because once you understand how an avoidant processes communication, once you see what triggers their walls and what quietly lowers them, you will never text the same way again. But before we get into the texts, you need to understand something fundamental, something that will reframe everything you thought you knew about this person. An avoidant is not cold because they do not feel. They are cold because they feel too much. And they have spent their entire life learning that feelings lead to pain. Somewhere in their history, probably early, they learned that depending on someone emotionally was dangerous, that needing people meant getting hurt. So they built a wall, a very effective, very convincing wall. And from behind that wall, they watch you. They notice you. They are often more drawn to you than they let on. But the moment they feel the pull getting too strong, something inside them hits a panic button and they retreat. This is not personal. I know it feels personal. I know it feels like rejection, but it is a reflex. It is almost automatic. The avoidant is not sitting there thinking, I want to hurt this person. They are sitting there thinking, this is getting too close and closeness has always cost me something. So the question is not, how do I make them like me more? The question is, how do I communicate in a way that does not trigger that panic button? How do I create connection without crowding them? How do I make them feel drawn in without making them feel trapped? And the answer lives in 4 very specific texting approaches. Before we get into the first one, drop a word in the comments, just one word, whatever you are feeling right now about this person. Nervous, confused, hopeful, exhausted, whatever it is, put it there. And if you want to actually change how things go with this person, subscribe. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers and we are genuinely not close yet. Every single one matters. Hit that button. Now let us get into this. The first text is what I call the no pressure check-in. And I need you to understand why pressure is the avoidant's worst enemy before you can understand why this text works so well. When an avoidant receives a message that has emotional weight behind it, a message that requires them to match your energy, respond at your level, or validate your feelings, something shuts down in them. It is not that they do not want to respond. It is that the expectation feels like a wall closing in. Even a simple, "How are you?" can feel loaded if it comes with the unspoken subtext of, "I need you to emotionally engage with me right now." So the no pressure check-in removes all of that. It sounds something like this. "Hey, no need to respond right away. Just wanted to say I thought of you when I saw this." And then you attach something genuinely relevant to them. A meme about something they love. A news story about a topic they care about. A photo of something that reminded you of a specific conversation you had. Then, nothing more. No question marks fishing for a response. No "I miss you" tagged on the end. No little hint that you are waiting. That is it. Clean, light, genuine. Now, why does this work on an avoidant specifically? Because you have done something almost no one does. You have removed the expectation. You have told them before they could feel trapped that the exit door is right there, no pressure. And paradoxically, that is the moment they stop running for the exit. Because avoidants do not flee from people, they flee from obligation. They flee from emotional debt. The moment they feel like they owe someone something, they disappear. But when there is nothing owed, when the text is genuinely just a thought you had about them with zero strings, the avoidant brain can actually breathe. And when it can breathe, it can respond. You will find that this kind of message often gets a reply faster than anything more emotionally loaded you have ever sent. Not always. Avoidants are unpredictable, but significantly more often than you would expect. There is a version of this that works even better. When the thing you share connects to something specific they told you, not a generic thing, a specific thing. If they mentioned once that they have a complicated relationship with their hometown, and you send them a quirky article about that city, you are showing them something powerful. You are showing them that you listened, you were present, you remembered, and you are not asking for anything in return. That is the kind of thing that stays with someone. The avoidant goes to bed that night and thinks about that. Because most people in their life have never just given them something without needing something back. The second text is what I call the confident, low investment reach out. And this one requires you to be in a specific headspace to pull it off. You cannot fake this. The avoidant will sense it immediately if you do. Here is what it sounds like. Something along the lines of, just had the strangest day. Would have made you laugh. Hope yours was better. Or maybe something like, this city is full of characters today. You would have hated it, which means you would have loved it. Short, specific to them, and completely self-contained. Notice what is happening there. You are sharing a moment from your life. You are letting them in just a little bit. You are referencing them in a way that shows you know who they are as a person. And then you are closing the loop yourself. You are not leaving it hanging open for them to fill. You are not saying, tell me about your day, or what are you up to? You are simply including them in your world for a moment and then stepping back. This works because avoidants are deeply attracted to people who have their own lives. Not just people who say they have their own lives, but people who demonstrate it. The fact that you have a story to share, that something happened to you, that you found it worth mentioning, all of that signals that you are a person with presence, with momentum, with a life that exists independently of them. And here is the thing about that. An avoidant will pull away from someone who seems to be orbiting them, someone who seems to have made them the center of everything. Because that feels like pressure. That feels like weight. But someone who is clearly living their own life, clearly having their own experiences, clearly not sitting by the phone waiting, that person becomes interesting. That person becomes something to reach toward rather than something to escape from. The second element of this text is the confident tone. Not cocky, not performative, just calm and grounded. There is an ease to it, a lightness. You are not trying to impress them. You are not trying to extract a response. You are just being a person with a voice and a perspective and a life worth knowing about. The third text is what I am calling the open door callback, and it is probably the most underused move in the entire playbook of connecting with an avoidant. Here is the scenario. Something happened between you two. Maybe they went quiet. Maybe you had a moment that fizzled. Maybe a plan fell through and you are both in that weird limbo where no one has addressed it. Most people in this situation either over-address it, sending a long message about how they feel, what they want, what happened, what does it mean, and so on, or they go completely silent, hoping the other person will reach out, feeling resentful when they do not. The open door callback does neither of those things. It sounds something like this. Still up for grabbing that coffee whenever you resurface? No rush. Or something like this. That place we talked about checking out is apparently amazing. Doors open if you ever want to check it out. What you have done there is extraordinary in its simplicity. You have referenced something that existed between you two, something shared. You have left a door open without demanding they walk through it. And you have communicated something essential, that you are not angry, that you have not written them off, that the option still exists. For an avoidant, this is an almost irresistible kind of message, because their fear underneath everything is that closeness will cost them the relationship eventually, that they will get close and then something will go wrong and they will lose the person, and it will confirm everything they believe about emotional connection being unsafe. So they pull away first. They get there before the loss does. But when you send this text, you are telling them something they rarely hear. You are saying, I am still here. I am not punishing you for needing space. The option is on the table and it has no expiry date. That combination of patience and calm and continued interest without pressure, it rewires the story they have been telling themselves about what happens when they pull away. Most people leave. Most people get hurt and become cold. Most people punish them for needing distance. You just left the door open. And that, to an avoidant, is an almost shocking act of emotional generosity. Now, here is what I need you to understand about using this text. Your tone has to be genuine. If you are seething underneath and trying to use this as a strategic move while secretly hoping they feel guilty, it will not land right. The words might look the same, but the energy will be different. Avoidants are incredibly sensitive to emotional undercurrents. They have had to be their whole lives. It was a survival skill. They will detect the manipulation even if they cannot name it. So when you send this, send it from a real place, from a place of actually meaning it. You are genuinely okay with them taking their time. You are genuinely still interested. You are genuinely not spiraling. If you are not in that place yet, work on getting there before you send anything. The fourth text is the one that tends to surprise people the most, because it goes against every instinct you have when you like someone. I call it the disappearing act text. And it is less of a text and more of a texting philosophy. Here is how it works. You send something engaging, something with a little spark to it, and then you go quiet. Genuinely quiet. Not strategically quiet where you are checking your phone every 8 minutes. Actually quiet. You go live your life. You make plans. You do the thing you have been putting off. You call the friend you have been meaning to call. You go to the gym, or take the walk, or start the project. You genuinely step out of the waiting room. And while you are doing that, something happens in the avoidant's mind. Because the avoidant is used to being the one who creates distance. It is their move. It is how they maintain control of the emotional temperature in a connection. When you suddenly become the one who is not right there, available, visible, waiting, something shifts. Curiosity gets activated. Avoidants are not immune to missing people. They actually miss people quite deeply. They just rarely admit it, even to themselves. But when someone they are genuinely drawn to becomes less available, that feeling surfaces. The question becomes, where did they go? Are they okay? Did something change? Are they less interested now? And that question, that small seed of uncertainty, is actually healthy for a connection with an avoidant. Not manufactured uncertainty, not games, but the natural uncertainty that comes from two people actually having separate lives. From you not being endlessly available. From you being someone with things to do and places to be. The text that follows your quiet period should be casual and unconcerned. It should feel like you just resurfaced because something genuinely reminded you of them, or because you wanted to share something. Not because you have been counting the days. Not because the silence was eating you alive. Just because you thought of them and you sent a thing. That combination of genuine disengagement followed by light re-engagement is one of the most effective communication patterns you can develop with an avoidant. It mirrors the rhythm they need. It gives them the space they are always unconsciously looking for. And then it offers connection without demand. Now I want to talk about something that sits underneath all four of these texts, because the texts alone are not actually the point. The texts are just the vehicle. What matters more is the energy you are texting from. If you are in a constant state of anxiety about this person, if you are monitoring every word before you send it, if you are decoding every response for hidden meaning, if you are lying awake trying to figure out where you stand, then even the best crafted text in the world is going to carry that anxiety with it. People feel energy. We are remarkably good at detecting when someone is calm and when someone is desperate, even through a screen, even through a handful of words. So as much as I want you to understand these four texts, I want you even more to understand the internal shift required to actually use them effectively. That shift is about genuinely becoming less focused on them. Not as a trick, not as a technique to make them want you more, but as an actual recalibration of where your attention lives. Because right now, if you are in the thick of this thing with an avoidant, I would bet that a significant portion of your mental energy every single day is being spent on this one person, on what they meant, on what they will say, on what you should do, on whether they are thinking about you. And that is understandable. Avoidant relationships create a kind of emotional push and pull that is genuinely addictive in its neurochemistry. The intermittent reinforcement, the moments of closeness followed by distance, the hope and the confusion cycling through you constantly, all of that lights up the same parts of your brain as other forms of compulsive behavior. It is not a character flaw, it is biology, but you can interrupt it. You interrupt it by actively investing in other areas of your life. Not to manufacture confidence as a technique, but because your own life, your own goals, your own relationships, your own experiences, those things deserve your attention. And when you start genuinely giving them your attention, something interesting happens. You become more interesting, not because you are performing it, but because you are actually living it. And the avoidant, who is extremely perceptive, who has been watching you more carefully than you probably realize, starts to feel that shift. Starts to notice that you are different, that you are not waiting anymore, that you have things going on, that you are a person in motion. And a person in motion is extraordinarily attractive to someone who has spent their whole life standing still emotionally. Let me take you a little deeper into avoidant psychology for a moment, because I think it will help you have more compassion for this person and also more clarity about what you are actually dealing with. People with avoidant attachment styles generally learned very early that their emotional needs were either ignored or responded to inconsistently. In some cases, they had caregivers who were loving but unable to handle big emotions, who would shut down or become uncomfortable when the child expressed need. In other cases, there may have been more active rejection. Whatever the specific circumstance, the child drew a conclusion. The conclusion was that needing people is not safe. That the way to stay okay is to not need. So they became self-sufficient in the most extreme way. They internalized the belief that they were fine on their own, that they did not need closeness, that connection was something they could take or leave. And for a long time, that belief protected them. It kept them from the pain of dependency. It gave them a sense of control. But what it also did was prevent them from ever experiencing the kind of deep, sustained connection that every human being fundamentally needs. And deep down, underneath the walls and the independence and the coolness, the avoidant often aches for that connection. They just do not know how to have it without panic shutting them down. This is why patience matters so much with this personality. Not infinite patience, not martyrdom, not putting your own needs permanently on hold, but a kind of steady, calm presence that tells them you are not going anywhere, you are not threatening them, and you are not going to collapse the moment they need a little space. That kind of steadiness is incredibly rare in a partner. And to an avoidant who has unconsciously been testing every person they meet for signs of emotional instability or suffocation, it is profoundly attractive. Now, let me also say something that might be harder to hear. Not every avoidant is ready to do the work. Not every avoidant, no matter how carefully you text, no matter how patient you are, no matter how well you manage your own energy, is going to meet you where you need to be met. Some people are at a place in their own journey where the walls are simply not coming down anytime soon. And you staying in that dynamic, holding the door open indefinitely, is not doing either of you any favors. Part of what these texts are about is giving you a framework that is emotionally healthy for you as well as strategically effective with them. The no pressure reach out is good for you because it requires you to let go of the outcome. The confident low investment text is good for you because it requires you to actually have something going on in your own life. The open door callback is good for you because it releases you from resentment. And the disappearing act is good for you because it requires you to actually live. So even if this particular person never comes around, the practices I am describing here are going to make you more grounded, more attractive, and more emotionally healthy in every relationship you have going forward. That is not a consolation prize. That is actually the whole point. Let us talk about what not to do, because sometimes knowing what to avoid is just as valuable as knowing what to pursue. Do not send multiple texts in a row if you have not gotten a response. 1 message is a reach. 2 messages starts to feel like pressure. 3 messages feels like pursuit. And to an avoidant, pursuit triggers the exact reflex you are trying to avoid. Give the message space to breathe. If they have not responded, it is not because they did not see it. It is because they are processing it in whatever way they process things. Let them process. Do not use texts as a vehicle for emotional processing. This is a big one. When you are anxious and confused about where things stand, when you are lying awake at 2 in the morning trying to make sense of everything, the urge to send a message is enormous. The urge to open the conversation, to get some clarity, to say what you are feeling is completely understandable. But with an avoidant, this kind of message will almost always backfire. It will feel like too much, too soon, too heavy, and they will retreat. If you need to process with a friend, process with a journal, process here in the comments if you want, but do not make the avoidant your processing partner unless and until the relationship has developed to a place where they have explicitly shown they can hold that space. Do not punish them for taking space. This one is subtle but important. If they go quiet for a few days and then reach out, do not greet them with coldness. Do not respond with a clipped answer designed to let them know you noticed their absence. Do not perform distance as revenge, because the moment you do that, you confirm their deepest fear. You confirm that connection is dangerous and that getting close costs them something, that the warmth will disappear the moment they pull back. Instead, when they resurface, respond with warmth, with genuine warmth. Not excessive, not over the top, not look how fine I am, just warm. Hey, good to hear from you. And then meet them where they are. That response, that non-punitive, welcoming response, is one of the most powerful things you can do with an avoidant. It breaks the pattern they expect. It teaches them, slowly, that coming back is safe. Do not over-explain yourself. Avoidance can sometimes create situations where you feel compelled to justify your behavior or explain your feelings in lengthy detail. They might say something that seems dismissive or confusing, and you feel the urge to lay out your entire emotional landscape so they understand where you are coming from. Resist this. Keep your emotional disclosures short, clear, and low pressure. The longer and more detailed your explanation, the more overwhelming it becomes. The simpler and calmer you are, the easier it is for them to stay in the conversation. Now let us talk about timing, because when you text an avoidant, matters almost as much as what you text. Late night texts are a mixed bag. On one hand, people are more emotionally open at night. Guards come down. The distractions of the day fall away. But late night texts also carry an energy of vulnerability and need that an avoidant can find overwhelming. If you are going to send something at night, make sure it is very light. Something funny, something that requires nothing, not something emotionally loaded or searching. Morning texts work well when they are casual and reference something specific. Good morning by itself can feel like an obligation to respond. Good morning plus something specific about their day or something you genuinely thought of, that has a little more texture to it. Midday texts are often the most underrated. People are in the middle of their lives. A text that arrives midday and does not require an immediate response, that just lands there and can be picked up when it makes sense, that is comfortable territory for an avoidant. And what about after conflict or tension? Wait longer than you think you need to. Avoidants need time to come back down after something has felt emotionally charged. What feels like a short amount of time to you might feel like an eternity. Give them more room than seems reasonable. Then reach out with something light. Not a reference to the tension unless they bring it up, just warmth and normalcy. A signal that the static has cleared. Loving an avoidant is not automatically a mistake. It depends on two things: their self-awareness and your needs. If they recognize their patterns and are genuinely trying to grow, change is possible. But if they blame everyone else and avoid accountability, the relationship can become painful. At the same time, your needs matter. If they cannot offer emotional presence, communication, or consistency, no strategy will fix that gap. Yes, give them space. Yes, communicate in ways that do not trigger withdrawal. But also stay honest about reality. Are they making effort, even slowly? Are they moving toward connection, or has everything stayed one-sided? You deserve someone who tries. The 4 texts work because they align with avoidant psychology. They reduce pressure, create safety, and allow connection without triggering retreat. But your role is not to break down their walls. That is their work. Your role is simply not to reinforce the belief that those walls are necessary. And the real goal is bigger than getting a text back. It is becoming calmer, clearer, and more grounded in yourself. When you build that kind of presence, the right people naturally move closer. The goal was never to force someone to want you. The goal is to create the conditions where something real can grow.